What is going on, everybody? I want to welcome you back. It's been a while to the Halftime Adjustment Podcast. My name is Jada Reporter. It has been a minute. I know it has been a minute, but as things happen, so does life. Today's topics we're going to have on the show for you today, we're going to talk about the slew of passings in the and not just the NBA but in sports in general, as well as the NFL shakeup with injuries and the cuts and stuff like that. So it's going to be a easing back in if you don't mind. But just to kind of get things going for you guys, life has a funny way of showing you exactly who's boss. We can all say one thing in unison about the year 2020. It is different, right? We can agree on that. It's been different. I can look back over the 32 years I lived on this earth, and I can say I've had a good year here, bad year here, and a lot of forgotten things in the middle. Just really doesn't matter too much, but there's some things that I've seen. Now, something that I have noticed with loss, we've all dealt with it, family members, some people a lot deeper than others with parents or even siblings and things like that. So a lot of us have seen and lived through the worst of it. But sometimes someone's passing, and I've been guilty of saying this. How can you be affected so much by a famous person's passing if they've done nothing directly, not indirectly through their actions, but directly through their actions to affect you? And I felt that way for quite some time. I mean, I said the better part of my life, that's how I felt. And I think the bulk of that was because I haven't lost, there was no famous person who passed that really hurt. Then 2020 happens, here's Kobe. Then as the year goes on, there's close people to me, family members and folks who I grew up, kind of, like mothers in the church and stuff like that. Like, those are the people now who are passing. So just kind of seeing all of it for kind of how it breaks itself down. This past 4 days, I'm just going to give it a benefit. The last 4 days have been rough. We're talking these four gentlemen in particular, and I'm going to touch on each of them individually. You got Cliff Robinson, Lute Olson, John Thompson, which happened on today, the day I'm recording this, which is August the 31st. And then the one that kind of hit home for everyone, it stopped a binge watching session for me and my lady, but it was Chadwick Boseman. When he passed, we were in the middle, we were watching, I want to say, because we just started watching the show Lucifer. For those of y'all who haven't watched that show, it is hilarious. I get the premise, can turn some people off, but just kind of bear with it. I got a chance to see Cliff Robinson play pretty much my entire life. He was drafted around the time that I was born. I saw him play pretty much his entire career out. I remember him playing for the Blazers, the 92 NBA Finals. I remember kind of spamming him when he was with the Nets playing on NBA Live because he was pulling up from three like it was no one's business. He was one of those first kind of stretch forward kind of guys. And then it gets to the coaches. Lute Olson was the first one, and for those of y'all who've been keeping up with the channel, I typically like to do a lot of 2-minute warnings and things like that about someone when they pass, and I was going to do one for each of the four of these gentlemen, and then I said, nah, I just don't know if I'll be able to keep the energy level up for that. But knowing that each of these gentlemen, Lute Olson, Coach John Thompson, for those of y'all who don't know who Coach John Thompson is, he was the first African American coach to win an NCAA championship. Now, that's huge. I don't care what, that is big. Because if you think about it from there forward, I'm not even too sure how many African American coaches have won NCAA titles. But I could check that, but it hasn't been many. But just to show you like how important he was, he won one title, and that came in, was it 1984? 1984. That Georgetown team in 84. He became the first to win, and that was over the Houston Cougars. And for those who want to know who was on that Houston team, Phi Slama Jama. It says enough, right? That's how talented he was as a coach. The players he brought in, Patrick Ewing, Alonzo Mourning, Allen Iverson, Dikembe Mutombo. We're talking Hall of Fame level talent. And not to mention, when he brought in Allen Iverson, that was a risk. He was running a serious risk bringing in a guy like Allen Iverson. But he knew, hey, I can work with him. I can show him the way to go. I can give him another route, because Allen Iverson was getting in trouble in high school. A lot of teams were taking their hands off, like, yo, we get it, the kid's talented, but he's a risk. And one thing that, and I'm glad my dad kind of taught me this, he said, last thing you want to be in this world is a risk, especially as a black man. You don't want to be looked at as a risk, because you're already looked at somewhat as one. You're looked at somewhat as a risk. Someone's taking a chance on you. John Thompson took that chance on Allen Iverson, and literally without him taking that chance, we don't get some of the best highlights in NBA history. We don't get the Jordan crossover. We don't get the NBA Finals Game 1 step over Tyronn Lue. We don't get any of that without him. And not to mention, he also paved the way for African American head coaches to coach outside of HBCUs. Now, there may have been other black coaches before then, yes, but he really showed that, hey, we can do this on this level. And now we got guys at Florida State. We got coaches all over now, all over the place that are just getting the job done. And I can appreciate that. Because if it wasn't for him taking those risks, taking those chances, showing that you can get things done just by giving us a chance, he proved it. Now, there was something I want to touch on in regards to these four gentlemen. The complete loss that was had with, it started lightly. It started with Lute Olson. Lute Olson was old. He's older, definitely older. And I think out of the four of them, he was the oldest. And for no one who doesn't know much about Lute Olson, he basically built the Arizona basketball team. So there you have it. He built that team. Sean Miller, you can say what you want about Sean Miller, great coach. That job isn't as good as it is without Lute Olson building that program. So he's been in the Hall of Fame. I mean, he's in the National College Basketball Hall of Fame. He's in the Basketball Hall of Fame. So two different Hall of Fames. You got the collegiate and you got the holistic. Because in the holistic one, you can have college guys in there. It's a little weird. So when people want to know a little fun fact, Christian Laettner is in the Basketball Hall of Fame, the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, even though his career in the NBA was trash. So kind of shows you where it goes. But He's in both of those. He broke my heart in 1997 when Arizona put out UNC in the NCAA tournament, but he built that program up from the bottom. It wasn't like you go to the Pac at the time, the Pac-10, not the Pac-12, but back then it was UCLA and everybody else. Arizona came from mid-tier, bottom tier in that conference, and he rose them up to the point where they began to rival UCLA as far as what they're able to do on the court. Now, granted, the achievements for those two programs are night and day, but you still got to say it's something for building something that wasn't there before, and then seeing it still stand today. Now, to touch on the one that hurt the most, that was Chadwick Boseman. Like I said, we were sitting on the living room couch, just me and my lady sitting on the living room couch, and we were watching Lucifer, the show Lucifer on Netflix. And she kind of does this thing where if something's shocking, she won't respond to me for several seconds. So that's happened a lot throughout our relationship. So I kind of know when it's something I need to kind of know what's going on. So I'm like, yo, what's happening? What's going on? What's the issue? She's like, I don't believe this. And I'm sitting there like, girl, if you don't tell me. Now I'm getting worried because I'm thinking, okay, was it her dad? Is it my parents? Is it her brother? Like, what's going on? At this point, I'm scrambling, my brain scrambling, trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to be doing here? First thing she said, she didn't even say anything. She just turned her phone screen over towards me. And then I read Chadwick Boseman, actor for Black Panther, dead at 43, colon cancer. And it stuck with me hard. And I say the reason that it did was colon cancer is literally the killer in my family. The men in my family, I have an uncle that passed away from colon cancer, grandfather passed away from colon cancer, and that's on both sides. It's my dad's brother, my mom's dad. So we're talking both branches of my family tree are linked through a disease. So I'm like, well, that means I'm more highly susceptible. So for anybody who thinks that you're 100% healthy just because you're not sick, I implore you, please go get checked out. They tell us we start going at 50. I'm 32. I'm going at 35 for my first. Because if there's anything going on up there, I want to know, for my lady's sake, for my unborn child's sake, I want to know. So, and as black men, we got to do a better job of taking care of ourselves. There's a reason why there's not a lot of old black men in the families anymore, and I don't think a lot of people may realize that, but there's not a whole lot of old black men in families. So right now, my dad is the eldest statesman in the family. He's 70. He's the eldest man in the family. But when I look back, I only got a chance to meet one of my grandfathers, and I think he passed when I was maybe 6 or 7. So as far as the memories go, I have some, but not as many as I would like. And I don't want that for my kids' when they get here, for that to be the same thing. I don't want them saying, oh, well, my granddaddy passed when I was 4. I mean, I don't want that for them. Because if that was going to be the case, let's say time works out the same way. By the time my son has kids, I'll be 64. To me, perfect age for a grandfather. I should be able to still at least give that grandchild another 20 years. And that's something that we don't necessarily have a chance to do as much in the black community without it being, what's going on now in society, or even what's been plaguing us for years. I know cops out there, there's good ones, there's bad ones. There's some that take lives, there's some that save lives. I said, but we also know that in our own community, we have a tendency to take our own lives as well. Not excusing one for the other. Just saying we know they both exist. So we have to do all we can to make sure we're there for the generations that come well after. And that's some of the things I was thinking about with all the loss. Like I said, Cliff Robinson, Chadwick Boseman, Lou Olson, John Thompson. May all four of these gentlemen rest in peace. May the families find solace. And I really hope that for everything that these families are going through, that we give them the opportunity to grieve and know that they have a community that has their back. Now, on the other side of the normal break, what we're going to have for you guys coming up is going to be a little bit more on a joyous end. Well, not really joyous, but a little bit more what you typically come to here to listen to, and that is sports. So we're going to get a chance to touch on the NFL, how it's shaking up a little early on. I'm also going to touch on the NBA, what I think about what's going on in these playoffs right now, and also my dark horse to get to the finals. I know you guys know who I picked to get there, but I do have a dark horse team that I think is very impressive on the court because they have been completely focused. We're going to talk about that on the other side, and I'll be hollering at you all in a little bit. Well, guys, welcome back to the Halftime Adjustment Podcast. I am Jay, the reporter, and the second half of this show is going to be a little bit different from what we've been doing so far. What we got going on here is just going to be us talking about how the NFL is going to be extremely different. Before we do that, I do want to touch on something. I know I said I was going to talk about the NBA and the NFL, but I do want to touch on something as well. All right. So recently, I've been doing a lot of gaming, a lot of it, and I started to realize exactly how much a particular franchise sucks. And when I say franchise, I'm talking about a team. I'm talking about a video game franchise. All right. So I spent the last 2 years, for the most part, playing Madden online with some friends from work, as well as some friends I met in school, fraternity brothers, stuff like that, just so I can sit back and bond with the guys. I really hate Madden's gameplay. And the fact that it's gone untouched, literally untouched, the gameplay has gone pretty much untouched for the better part of 3 years is disturbing. Like, I can go back to Madden 25 and get a better football product than I'm getting from Madden 21. All right. I'm pretty sure you guys seen all the videos about that kind of stuff, but I just really want to touch on that. Like, it disturbs me. So it's actually something I went back and I did. And it's odd, but I went back and I started playing NFL 2K5. I haven't had that much fun playing a football game, like on the field football game, in so long. Like, I didn't know I was missing that much. I mean, from presentation to gameplay to how things kind of move. Now, granted, the game itself was 15 years old. I'm going to tell you how old the game is. Big Ben, who may be retiring next year, was a rookie in that game. That's how old the game is. We're talking Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers. We're talking before the Patriots dynasty. Like, we're talking I think this is the second ring. No, this will be this is ring 3 because it came against the Eagles. This is ring 3 for the Patriots. That year was ring number 3. So that's how old that game is. But the gameplay and how it moves, how it maneuvers was so much better. And I wish I had clips. I may have to get a video card. I'm still working on that kind of stuff because I'm a pretty new YouTuber, but I'm kind of working on that kind of stuff. But the gameplay on it was just so much better. The fluidity, ball placement, you can actually run a fade route, slants aren't broken, zone coverages actually makes sense. Players know how to react to the ball where it's thrown in placement. It just makes sense. The game itself makes sense. And not to mention the depth of the franchise mode, from scouting to scouting teams and scouting players to free agency, how that all works out. It's just so much better. Honestly, it is so much better. But on to what we were going to talk about. And speaking of free agency, Leonard Fournette gets cut today. All right, so for those of y'all who think that he's been in the league forever, it's been 3 seasons. His first year, rookie year, where they broke my heart, beat the Pittsburgh Steelers twice because we could not stop them from scoring a bunch of points early. Then you have 2018 where he gets hurt, and 2019 where he couldn't stop running his mouth. Now, looking at his numbers, you would say there was a level of consistency. So I'm not going to say that that year he got hurt was going to be any different, because literally he got hurt with half the carries that he was normally getting. We're talking 265 in 2019, and in 2017 he had 268 as far as carries. When he got hurt in 2018, he had 133 carries. Here's where the difference lies. His yards per carry average for his career is 4. But the year he got hurt, it was 3.3. So he wasn't having his best season, but he was getting in the end zone for the most part. Now, the Jaguars did go on to say that they tried to find trade partners. And here's the problem with troubled players. And this goes back to a point I was making earlier in the podcast about not being a problem. Like, you don't want to become an issue. He became an issue, started getting in trouble a little bit off the field, was doing some questionable things that make the team say, hey, look, we get it, you're talented. But also keep this in mind. 1,000-yard backs are a dime a dozen now. I mean, big time dime a dozen. The Steelers proved it over the past 2 years. 2-3 years when we went from Le'Veon Bell to James Conner. Numbers were identical, bodies were different. So literally, you can do the same thing with a different guy. So you're not as important as you would deem yourself to be. And I'm starting to realize that that's a running theme in the NFL, because he's not the only one. I think he's going to be worried about his job if he can't shape up. Now, granted, this shape up is a little different, and I'm going to talk about Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz does need to shape up, but I'm talking about shaping up his body, finding a way to stay healthy. I mean, we're talking about they haven't even really been taking contact like that, and bro's already hurt. Now, granted, had there been preseason ball, he probably would have been hurt before then, because contact typically leads to injury. Oh, who knew? But Carson Wentz is basically going to wind up being the Drew Bledsoe of this era. Good quarterback, can get the job done, can get you to a Super Bowl, I believe, can take you as far as you can possibly take it. But if you can't stay healthy enough to get to a full season, that's going to wind up hurting you. So, just looking at his career, he played 2 full seasons. His rookie year and last season. First 2 years he played the full year. So he has a bit of people say he has a bit of injury history. I just say he has bad injury timing. So, second year in the league, should have been MVP. All right? I'm going to read up the numbers to it. I believe he should have been MVP this year. Now, granted, the only reason he didn't get it is because he got hurt. But, and it's also the year they won a Super Bowl. Through the 13 games that they played, he was 11-2, 3,200 yards. It was 4 yards away from 3,300, so 3,296. 33 touchdowns. So that's with 3 games to go. He's already at 33 touchdowns, which means that just kind of averaging it out a little bit, he very well could have thrown 40 touchdowns during that season just by miracle of throwing 2 touchdowns a game over the last 3 games. He could have thrown for 40. So one of those games he puts up 3, he's there. So it's possible to throw 7 touchdowns in 3 games. We've seen 7 touchdowns in 3 quarters from quarterbacks before. And only threw 7 picks, which means that he wasn't turning over the football. Now here's where it gets a little bit fun, because that was the year they won the Super Bowl. The following season, they get back to the postseason, but through those 11 games, they were 5-6. Nick Foles comes in, takes over. The Bears blow a kick. Eagles win. Which, on an old channel that I don't like to say the name of, that was the only game I got wrong that weekend, was the Bears-Eagles game, because I thought the Bears defense was going to suffocate the Eagles offense, which is exactly what it did. But the Bears offense just couldn't put up enough points because their quarterback is trash. Now, looking into last season, yet another year where he played the full year. They won the division at 9-7. And now, granted, he didn't get hurt, but Lord, were the Eagles a mash unit. Now, like I say, he played the whole year, and there's a chance that he plays his whole year too, given the fact that the season doesn't kick off for another 2 weeks or so. It gives him time to get healthy and kind of keep things kind of rolling well. But we're talking 27 touchdowns, 7 picks, an interception ratio of 1.2. Just played it a lot better than what people would have gave him credit for playing it. I believe that he doesn't necessarily have an injury problem. It's just the time he gets hurt. Now, if he happens to go down, we know who's stepping up, and that's Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts has played in several different systems in college. He played at Alabama. He played at Oklahoma. 2 completely different offenses. One pro style, one more wide open. Let's just toss it all over the lot, and the quarterback can be the focus of everything that's going on. So just kind of looking at how that plays out, I believe that's the reason why the Eagles spent that pick. It's not because Wentz has an injury problem. He has bad injury timing. He gets hurt literally at the same clip Big Ben gets hurt. It's not how he gets hurt, but more so when it happens. So I don't want Eagles fans overreacting. I still got the Eagles winning this division. I just do not believe in anyone else that much. The Redskins aren't going to be that good in my opinion. The Giants are still building. The Cowboys will be the Cowboys. They'll have a great roster on paper and go 8-8. They are what they are. Now, granted, could the change in coaching help? I'm assuming so, but that's yet to be proven. Now, shaking it up a little bit, we're going to move from the NFL to the NBA. And I was telling you guys right before the break that I believe that the NBA has a dark horse team. And I was originally just going to go in one conference, but I believe it's in both conferences. There's a dark horse team in each of those 2 conferences that can get out and win it all. I'm going to start in the Western Conference because this team is still playing in the first round. But my dark horse team is the Denver Nuggets. I love how they are composed. Murray may be the baddest man under 6'4". This dude is incredible. And he developed his way up. The team, but there were pieces already there. They played it all perfectly fine. I like how they did things. They played it well. And not to mention, if you're up 3-1, which the Jazz were up 3-1, you have to win one game. Now it's tied 3-3. All the momentum is on the Nuggets side. Even though Donovan Mitchell is playing out of his gourd. I mean, he is playing insane. And also not to mention, as far as playoff predictions go, I did have the Nuggets winning this series. Now, granted, I had them doing it in 6. If they pull this off, I'd still be sitting really nice and really pretty in my playoff bracket at 100%. But With the team being constructed the way it is, they are healthy, they have shooters, they play really, really good defense. And we're talking about a team that plays good defense against a team that's bigger than they are. The Jazz are a bigger team, and they're not using that to their advantage. And that's why I believe the Nuggets are going to wind up winning the series. Now, that's my Western Conference pick. The Eastern Conference pick isn't really as much of a dark horse historically, but as far as how the Eastern Conference was shaking out, I like the Celtics. I really do like the Celtics. Granted, after watching them play game one, they were on point. Defensively, offensively, they had a flow. They knew what they wanted to do. The ball, the movement, the fluidity, it was all beautiful. I loved how they played it. Now, how it decided to move everything, as far as how the ball went, you really never know where they're going to stick. But the Celtics can beat you in many different ways. And it's because of that I picked them. Got a little hair in my mouth, big beard. But that's how I believe they're going to play this out. They are one of the best teams in the NBA as far as the depth goes. You can't really catch them on a completely off night because they have so many different pieces that can get you 20. And that's a very important number. We're talking scoring. If you got a guy who can get you 20, then you got a guy you can get the ball to when you know you need a bucket. Jason Tatum, he can go get a bucket as well as many other guys they have on the roster that can go out, get you a bucket. And not to mention, Kemba Walker is a serious player in these playoffs because he gives that backcourt a different level of scoring that honestly they didn't have last year. Even with Kyrie Irving, I don't believe they had that level of scoring because Kyrie can't do as much off the ball as Kemba can, in my opinion. So I believe if anyone comes out of the East that's not the Bucks, it'll be the Celtics. If things play out in an odd way in the Western Conference, the Nuggets very well may be able to take out the Clippers. I believe they can. But as far as it comes down to that, just let me know in the comment section what you guys think about that opinion. Now, this has been the first episode in quite a long time of the Halftime Adjustment. My name is Jay the Reporter, signing out. Peace.